Using Stoicism in stressful situations. Imagine you're stuck in traffic. Your boss expects you at the office in 10 minutes, and the meeting you've been preparing for all week starts in 15. The frustration boils up. You're gripping the steering wheel, yelling at the cars in front of you as if they'll move faster if you scream louder. It feels like the universe is conspiring against you. Now, take a deep breath. What if there's a different way to handle this stress? A way that doesn't leave you fuming, but instead, gives you control over your emotions, no matter how chaotic the world around you feels. This is where Stoicism comes in. Imagine you could face this stressful situation with a calm, steady mind. Instead of fighting the traffic, you could focus on what's within your control, your response, your attitude, and your actions. Stoic principles teach us just that. They show us how to turn frustration into peace and how to take back control, even when everything seems out of our hands. So today, let's explore how Stoicism can help us navigate stressful situations. It's about embracing the chaos outside while keeping calm inside. Let's dive into some practical lessons that can change the way you handle stress, one step at a time. Now, let's think about how this principle can reshape how we see the world, long term. When you embrace this idea of control, it becomes a game changer. You begin to realize that life isn't happening to you, it's happening around you. You're not helpless in the face of challenges. Instead, you have the power to choose your response. When you stop stressing about things beyond your control, something magical happens. You stop feeling overwhelmed. Stress begins to lose its grip on you because you've shifted your focus away from the uncontrollable and onto what you can influence. Imagine this in your everyday life. How would you feel if you could approach every stressful situation with this mindset? Whether it's work pressure, relationship struggles, or personal disappointments, you now know you have a choice in how you respond. You can choose calm over chaos, purpose over panic. And as you practice this more, you begin to see the world differently. The chaos outside doesn't need to dictate your inner peace. Next time stress begins to creep in, pause for a moment. Breathe. Ask yourself, what part of this situation can I control? Maybe it's how you spend your time, maybe it's how you communicate with others, or maybe it's simply your mindset. Focus only on that. The more you practice this, the more you'll realize that while you can't control everything, you always have control over yourself. By separating what you can control from what you can't, you'll begin to see the world in a new light. You'll stop fighting battles you can't win and start winning the ones you can. And in the end, you'll realize that the real power was always within you. Lesson 1. Focus on what you can control. The Stoics, thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, had a powerful belief: stress often arises when we try to control what's beyond our reach. They taught us to separate what's within our control from what isn't. When we grasp this simple concept, something incredible happens. We stop wasting energy on things that can't be changed, and instead, we focus on what we can: our actions, our thoughts, and our reactions. Let's revisit our traffic situation. You're stuck. Your boss wants you at the office in 10 minutes, and you're running late for a big meeting. Can you control the traffic? No. It's outside of your hands. But erase the shift, you can control how you react. You have the power to decide how you respond to this moment. Instead of letting frustration take over, imagine this: you could turn the situation into an opportunity. Maybe you listen to a podcast that inspires you, or you call ahead to reschedule the meeting. What happens when you do that? You stop feeling like a victim of your circumstances. You take charge. You're no longer waiting for the world to change, you're changing your perspective and your approach to the world. By facing these worst-case scenarios, you'll be more prepared emotionally. The fear loses its grip because you've already made peace with what might happen. You realize you can handle whatever comes your way. The beauty of this practice is that it doesn't make you fearful of the event, it empowers you to approach it with calm and clarity. You're no longer blindsided by fear because you've already accepted the possibility of failure. And the best part? You've also realized that failure, even if it happens, isn't the end of the world. It's just part of life. Now, let's talk about how this changes the way you see the world. Imagine this approach becoming a habit, not just for presentations but for everything that challenges you. When you practice negative visualization, you begin to see the world differently. Instead of constantly fearing what might go wrong, you start embracing the possibility of failure as a stepping stone. The world becomes less intimidating because you've already mentally prepared for the worst. You no longer react with panic or dread, you respond with calmness and confidence. Over time, this practice helps you build resilience. Every time you visualize the worst and face it calmly, you strengthen your emotional muscles. You realize that no matter what happens, you're capable of handling it. This shift in perspective is profound. It changes how you approach challenges, how you see setbacks, and how you interact with the world. You start to see that the true enemy isn't failure or discomfort, it's fear itself. By taking the time to visualize the worst, you not only prepare yourself for the challenges ahead, but you also transform your relationship with fear. It no longer controls you. You control it. Lesson 2. Practice negative visualization. We all face moments where anxiety takes over, before a big presentation, a challenging conversation, or even a major life decision. The Stoics had a powerful way of dealing with this fear. They used a practice called negative visualization. This technique involves imagining the worst-case scenario, not to invite disaster, but to prepare yourself emotionally for it. By mentally preparing for the worst, you begin to feel less fear and more control. Let's say you've got a big presentation coming up. You're nervous. What if the projector stops working? What if you forget your words, and the audience gets bored or annoyed? A Stoic would suggest that you actually imagine those things happening. Picture the projector failing, hear the awkward silence, feel the tension. It's uncomfortable, right? But here's the twist: by mentally confronting these worst-case scenarios, you can reduce the power they have over you. Why does this work? When we fear something, it's often because we've never fully imagined the worst that could happen. We worry about what we don't know. But when we face those fears head-on, even if only in our minds, we start to feel less anxiety. Because we're no longer afraid of the unknown. The situation, no matter how bad it might get, becomes manageable. It's no longer this monster hiding in the shadows, it's just a scenario you can handle. Next time you feel your nerves rising before a stressful event, take a moment to visualize the worst possible outcome. Maybe it's a presentation where everything goes wrong. Maybe it's a meeting where you say something embarrassing. Imagine it all, in full detail. Then, ask yourself, how would I handle it? A Stoic would tell you that this reaction is a trap. They would remind you, likes don't define your value. Your worth isn't measured by the number of followers or the feedback you receive from others. It's about the integrity of your actions, your intentions, and your ability to live according to your own values, regardless of external validation. The likes you get on a post are just numbers on a screen, they don't reflect who you truly are. And when you tie your worth to them, you give away your power. Now, let's put this Stoic principle into practice. Here's an exercise: next time you do something, whether it's sharing an idea, helping someone, or completing a project, do it without expecting any praise or acknowledgement. Focus on the act itself, not the outcome. When you stop looking for approval, you start to experience the true fulfillment of the action itself. It becomes less about how others respond and more about how you feel about what you've done. You might even find that your sense of accomplishment grows when you're not depending on others to confirm your worth. This practice can also apply to more everyday interactions. Think about a conversation you have, or a task at work. Do it because it's the right thing to do, not because of what someone else might think. By consistently doing this, you'll begin to realize that the external world doesn't hold the key to your happiness. Your contentment comes from your own actions and your sense of purpose. Now, let's explore how this principle can transform your perspective on life. Imagine you start living this way, no longer seeking validation, no longer measuring your worth by how others see you. What happens? You begin to shift your entire perspective. The pressure to measure up to other people's standards fades. You stop caring so much about being liked or accepted, and start caring more about being true to yourself. This doesn't mean you stop caring about others, or that you become indifferent to their feelings. It simply means you stop allowing others' opinions to control how you see yourself. You realize that your value is not something that can be given or taken away by anyone else, it's yours to define. This inner confidence frees you from the stress of seeking approval and allows you to focus on what truly matters, being the best version of yourself, not the version that others want you to be. And as you continue to practice this, something remarkable happens, you become more resilient. Life becomes less about seeking validation and more about living with integrity, pursuing what's important to you, and embracing who you are, no matter what others think. The world around you doesn't need to define you anymore. You start to see it differently. Instead of living for the likes or the praise, you begin to live for yourself, and in doing so, you discover a deeper sense of peace and self-worth. Lesson 3: Detach from external validation. One of the most common sources of stress is worrying about how others see us. Whether it's fearing judgment, rejection, or simply seeking approval, we often tie our self-worth to external validation. The Stoics, however, had a different view. They taught that your value doesn't depend on others' opinions. True worth comes from within, from your actions, your character, and how you carry yourself in the world. External validation is fleeting, but internal self-respect is unshakable. Let's consider a scenario that many of us are familiar with: posting something on social media. You post a photo, a status, or an opinion that you've been thinking about for a while. Then, you sit there, refreshing the page over and over, watching for likes and comments. Every time you see a like, it feels like a small boost to your confidence, a sign that people approve of you. But what happens when the likes don't come in? Or when the comments aren't what you expected? Suddenly, you might feel disappointed or even embarrassed. Your mind races: did I say something wrong? Does no one care? The way you feel about yourself seems to hinge on the response you get from others. Now, that doesn't mean you should just sit back and do nothing. What you can control is how you spend this time. Instead of obsessing over the result, you could focus on preparing for other opportunities, improving your skills, or reflecting on how the interview went. You can control your response and your actions in the waiting period, and that's where your true power lies. When you begin to accept that some things are beyond your influence, you free yourself from unnecessary stress and frustration. This practice of focusing on what's within your control and letting go of what isn't is one of the most liberating tools the Stoics gave us. It not only helps reduce anxiety, but it shifts your mindset in a way that can fundamentally change how you live your life. So, how can you apply this in your own life? Here is an exercise you can try. Think about a current stressor. It could be related to work, relationships, finances, or something else that's weighing on you. Write it down. Then, draw 2 columns on a piece of paper, one for what you can control and one for what you can't. In the can control column, list the things you have direct influence over: your actions, your decisions, and your mindset. In the can't control column, list the things that are out of your hands: other people's reactions, future outcomes, things that are simply beyond your influence. Once you've done that, make a commitment to focus only on the first column, the things you can control. Stop spending energy on the things in the second column. Recognize that while you can't control the actions of others or the future, you have the power to shape your own responses, your attitude, and the steps you take. The more you practice this, the more you'll begin to feel a sense of calm and clarity, because you're no longer wasting time and energy on what doesn't matter. This simple distinction between what you can control and what you can't changes the way you approach every situation in life. Imagine applying this every time you face stress, whether it's a job interview, a difficult conversation, or any challenge. You stop feeling overwhelmed because you've shifted your focus to what's in your power. You stop trying to force things to happen and start responding with intention, understanding that you can't always control the outcome, but you can always control how you act and react. Over time, this Stoic practice transforms your mindset. It helps you see the world differently. Instead of constantly fighting against the current or getting upset about things you can't change, you start to flow with it. You accept life as it is, and you focus on making the most of what's within your grasp. You begin to see that your peace of mind comes from within, not from trying to bend the world to your will. And this realization can have a profound impact on your emotional well-being. The less you try to control everything, the more you realize how much freedom and control you actually have over yourself. In the end, the power isn't in controlling the world, it's in controlling yourself within it. And once you understand this, life becomes a lot less stressful, and a lot more peaceful. Lesson 4: The Dichotomy of Control. In our last lesson, we talked about how our worth doesn't depend on others' opinions. Now, let's dive deeper into how the Stoics helped us navigate life's challenges by dividing everything into two categories: what's up to us, and what isn't. This simple distinction helps us focus our energy on what truly matters and frees us from the stress of trying to control things beyond our reach. What's up to us are the things we have direct control over: our actions, our thoughts, and our choices. These are the things we can shape, and they are the foundation of our character. What's not up to us is everything else: the opinions of others, the outcomes of our efforts, and the events of the world around us. The weather, other people's actions, and even the things you wish you could change but can't. The Stoics taught that we can't waste energy on things that are beyond our control. Instead, we should focus on what we can influence. Let's say you're waiting for the results of an important job interview. You've prepared well, answered the questions as best as you could, and now you're waiting for the decision. It's completely natural to feel stressed during this time. You want to know if you got the job, you want to succeed, and you want that validation. But here's the thing: stressing over the decision doesn't change anything. The outcome is outside of your control. In the grand scheme of things, that coffee spill is not a defining moment, but how you react to it can shape your day, your attitude, and your mindset. It's a chance to practice accepting life as it comes, not as you think it should be. This is the essence of Amor Fati, learning to love life exactly as it is, without judgment or resistance. Here's an exercise to help you start practicing Amor Fati today. The next time something goes wrong, big or small, pause for a moment and say to yourself, Amor Fati. Embrace whatever is happening without judgment. Reflect on how you can learn from it or how it might lead to something positive. For instance, if you miss a bus, instead of feeling frustrated, take a deep breath, and think, maybe this is an opportunity to slow down and appreciate the moment. You can also ask yourself, what can I control in this situation, and what can I not control? By focusing on your response, how you deal with the frustration, how you stay calm or find a solution, you shift your perspective from being a victim of circumstance to being an active participant in your own life. Every time you embrace Amor Fati, you're teaching yourself to see life's challenges as part of the process, rather than something to be feared or avoided. Now, imagine what happens when you start applying Amor Fati consistently. Over time, you begin to see life differently. Rather than trying to control every outcome, you start accepting things as they are. You stop resisting the flow of life and start moving with it. Every difficulty, every challenge, no matter how small, becomes an opportunity to learn, grow, and practice resilience. This mindset shift can change your entire outlook on the world. When you stop seeing setbacks as failures and start seeing them as valuable experiences, you become more adaptable, more patient, and more at peace with life's unpredictability. You realize that everything, even the difficult moments, is part of the journey, and that journey, in turn, helps you become a better, more grounded person. What's more, amor fati helps you stop wasting energy on things you can't control. Instead of stressing over the things you wish were different, you focus on the present moment and how you can respond in the most constructive way. You begin to cultivate an inner calm that isn't dependent on external circumstances. In this way, amor fati doesn't just change how you react to challenges, it changes how you see the world as a whole. You start to approach life with a sense of peace, knowing that whatever comes your way is an opportunity to grow. Lesson 5. Amor fati, love of fate. You've probably experienced those moments when everything seems to go wrong. The alarm doesn't go off, your coffee spills, your car breaks down, or you miss an important meeting. These are the moments that can make us feel like we're at the mercy of life's unpredictability. But imagine if, instead of resisting these events, you embraced them fully. That's the power of amor fati, the love of fate. It's a Stoic principle that encourages us to accept life exactly as it is, with all its challenges, setbacks, and imperfections. Instead of fighting against what happens, amor fati teaches us to see every part of life, both good and bad, as necessary and valuable for our growth. Picture this, you're about to walk into a big meeting or an important event, and you spill coffee all over your shirt. Instantly, you feel frustrated. Maybe you're running late, maybe you don't have time to change. It's a small but annoying setback, and your mind starts racing. Why does this always happen to me? A Stoic, however, would step back and say, this is a chance to practice patience and humor. Instead of seeing the coffee spill as a disaster, they would see it as an opportunity to embrace the moment and adjust with grace. Maybe you laugh it off and turn the situation into something lighter, even bonding with a colleague or making a self-deprecating joke. Perhaps you even realize that this small inconvenience is teaching you to be flexible and resilient in the face of unexpected events. Rather than continuing to argue, you might find yourself taking a step back. You realize that this disagreement, though it feels significant in the moment, isn't nearly as important as the bigger picture, the relationship itself, the moments you share, and the time you spend together. In the grand scheme of life, focusing on a small conflict seems insignificant when compared to the precious moments you could be cherishing. And in that realization, memento mori shifts your mindset. It allows you to release the tension and focus on what truly matters. So, how can you make memento mori a regular practice in your life? Start by keeping a small reminder of mortality nearby. It could be as simple as a note that says memento mori, a symbol like a skull or hourglass, or even a daily reflection that reminds you of life's impermanence. This doesn't have to be something that feels dark or heavy, it's simply a reminder that helps you live with intention. Whenever you find yourself stressed, overwhelmed, or caught up in something trivial, take a moment to pause. Look at your reminder and ask yourself, is this situation worth my energy? When you remember how fleeting life is, it becomes easier to put things into perspective. You'll find that many of the things you stress over are small in the grand scheme of your life. And what really matters, the time you spend with loved ones, the experiences that bring you joy, becomes much clearer. Over time, practicing memento mori can completely change how you see the world. It helps you stop sweating the small stuff and focus on what's truly important. Rather than wasting time in anger, regret, or frustration, you start to cherish the present moment. You start to see the beauty in the fleeting nature of life, the way a sunset can become a reminder to appreciate the now, or how a laugh with a friend becomes a treasure. In a world where we often get caught up in the rush of everyday life, memento mori encourages us to slow down, reflect, and reconnect with what truly matters. It teaches us to value our relationships, our health, and the moments we have, knowing that nothing is guaranteed. This realization brings a sense of urgency, not in a way that causes anxiety, but in a way that inspires us to live more intentionally. We stop waiting for the right moment and start making the most of the time we have, knowing that every moment is a gift. As you integrate memento mori into your life, you'll begin to feel more present and less distracted by the constant noise around you. You'll start to prioritize what brings you peace and joy, and you'll let go of the things that don't serve you. In the end, it's about living with awareness, recognizing that our time is limited, and choosing to live fully, without regret. Lesson 6, Memento Mori, remember you will die. There's a profound Stoic practice called Memento Mori, which translates to remember you must die. At first glance, this might seem like a heavy or even morbid reminder. But in reality, it's one of the most life-affirming principles the Stoics offer. It's not about dwelling on death or fearing it. Instead, it's about acknowledging the impermanence of life and recognizing how that very impermanence can inspire us to live more fully. When we understand that life is temporary, we stop wasting time on things that don't matter. We begin to appreciate the fleeting moments and focus on what's truly meaningful. Rather than getting caught up in the little annoyances and frustrations that seem so important in the moment, we gain a broader perspective. And that's the heart of Memento Mori, learning to live with a sense of urgency, of gratitude, and of purpose, knowing that each moment counts. Imagine this, you're in the middle of a small disagreement with a close friend. Maybe it's something trivial, like who forgot to send an invitation or who didn't follow through on a small promise. In that moment, it's easy to feel upset or frustrated, letting the disagreement consume your thoughts and energy. But when you pause and remember Memento Mori, you realize something important. Life is short. We don't know how much time we have with the people we care about. So, is this argument really worth your time and energy? Let's return to the traffic story from earlier. Imagine now that you've embraced the Stoic lessons we've discussed. You're sitting calmly in your car, the same traffic surrounding you, but you're no longer overwhelmed by frustration. You realize that you can't control the traffic, but you can control your reaction. So, instead of getting worked up, you take a deep breath. Maybe you put on your favorite audiobook, or you practice deep breathing to center yourself. The stress that once felt like a tidal wave starts to dissipate. You're not in control of the cars in front of you, but you are in control of how you respond. And when you finally arrive at your destination, maybe just a little late, you're calm and collected. The situation hasn't changed, but your perspective has. That's the power of Stoicism. It's not about changing the world around you, but changing how you see and react to the world. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending life is perfect. It's about finding clarity, purpose, and resilience amidst life's chaos. So, start small. Pick just one lesson from today's video, whether it's embracing a more fatty, practicing Memento Mori, or focusing on what you can control, and try applying it this week. Let us know in the comments how it worked for you. Remember, stress is inevitable, but how you respond is entirely up to you. Thank you for joining us on this journey into Stoicism. If you found this helpful, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more practical wisdom to help navigate life's ups and downs. Well, see you next time. Take care and keep growing.